Good morning, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, DC, Miami, Orlando. Oh, did I hit everybody? LA. Oh, we all over the place. We are all over the place. Thank you for joining me for Let's Talk About It with Xavier Fox. Get ready to continue this journey on Monday mornings, Thursday and Friday afternoons. Be ready to laugh and learn. We're going to learn other viewpoints on relationships, information on health and fitness, investing, a little bit of sex, and much more. Today, Gina Lamar is raw as she talks to us about lessons learned from previous relationships. You know, if you don't learn the lesson, you'll repeat it. And then I've got Chicago's own Adam Jackson on the show. We're going to talk about business and about the success of Allerdam. I know I'm saying it wrong. Cigars. But he'll let us know what it really is. If you want to participate on the show today, feel free to zoom in using the link, which can be found on my Facebook page, Xavier Fox, or you can join the public Facebook group, Let's Talk About It with Xavier Fox, where you can get all the info and interact with the personalities on the show. Go to xavierfox.com, radio-show for the schedule for the month of January to see when your favorite personality or topic is scheduled. So now let's get to it. Hey, Gina.
Good morning. Good morning.
And how you be today?
As you were saying my topic, I was like, maybe I did this wrong. Maybe I said all the lessons it took me so long to learn. Because you said it best. You will repeat it if you do not learn your lesson. You will repeat it, right? Now I'm going, oh, I think she's on to something. The way she said that lets me know, yeah, probably I should change the topic or to lessons it took me so long to learn.
Okay.
But now, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Gina Lamar, and this is Gina Lamar Raw. And that's the only way I know to do it as we talk about this. I want to talk about this real ass wisdom, right, that I've learned and how long it took me to learn it, right? That's the real question. And I'm going to go back and forth with you all. And if we have anybody else who joins us, I want them to share in too. Like, what did it take? How many lessons? How many times did you have to repeat something, right, before you learned it? Because it's one thing to say, oh, the lessons I learned is to bottom line. If he doesn't, open the door, or she doesn't cook for me or open the door, I'm saying all these misogynistic things, that this isn't, the relationship for me, right? Versus I recognize she can open her own door, I can cook my own breakfast, and we can have a real partnership, right? Okay. Those are the things that, as we grow and go and learn. So there are 5 things that you can always, I just like to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then tell you what I told you. So I always remind myself of these lessons that have come from me or that have come to me, right? And then I will tell you this. These lessons come at the most inopportune times, or not just the most inopportune times, but they come and then out of nowhere you hear what your parents said to you 30 years ago.
Oh my.
For me, I'm 55, almost 45 years ago, definitely, right? And you say, oh, that's what he meant by that, right? As in, pay attention to what people do and not what they say.
Oh, yeah, that was my dad's famous line. He told me that all the time.
What did he say with it, though?
My dad told me that actions speak louder than words because people use words to lie.
Oh, nice, nice. Pay attention to their actions and not their words. That's exactly it. And I love the whole they use words to lie, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The next part of that is do what you say you're going to do.
You're only as good as your word. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So do what you say you're going to do. And you say that you're not going to, if you're not going to accept, I don't know, a man who does not take out the garbage or a partner who does not pay their half of the bills. And then you find yourself in relationships going, I'm taking out garbage and you're paying the light bill. Come on, right? So don't lie, do what you say you're going to, what you say you're going to do, right? Then the next thing is, and actually, I'm going to leave that one for number 5. I wrote it backwards, but I'm going to leave that one for number 5. But the other part of that is give yourself some grace. So sometimes some people are so caught up on these rules and these rigid things that we forget to give ourselves grace, right? Because at the end of the day, every single relationship teaches us something,
True.
right?
Absolutely.
And even when we don't learn it, it still taught us something. We
Yes,
just
it
weren't
did.
ready for the lesson. I had to repeat pathophysiology, a couple of times in nursing school. And I'm still not a nurse, right? But I had to repeat pathophysiology a couple of times. And it is amazing how I just thought that, oh, heck, when I take it the second time, I will have learned something, right? But if I never applied myself and never really did my work, then I wasn't ever gonna, it didn't just come to me, right? So I had to give myself grace about, let's be realistic, Gina, did you really do that? So that was 30 years ago for sure. I recently attempted to take a licensure exam for something, right? And I said to my best friend, who does hold a license in the state of Illinois, whom I always talk smack about, like, man, what do you really do, right? Like, yeah, she's an occupational therapist. And my joke is that, she throws a ball at you. If you catch it, you're good. If you don't, if you don't, 7 more weeks of therapy, right? And so she's like, thanks for, minimizing my, degree, right? And not, she's a professor at the university now too, teaching it. So I know she knows her skill, but that's our joke. So I like called my best friend, like, I don't believe I failed this exam. What is wrong with me? I tested very well. And she said, I know. See, once again, you think my degree, my license is a joke, but you usually have to study before you sit for a state exam, Gina. And I said, wait, what? She was like, I think it's gonna come to you because things just come to you. And so it's so true that those aha moments, even in relationships, can take time, right? And it can take a minute in relationships to recognize, and I try to save women from this all the time. If you meet a man, most men want to be in their own space. But if you meet a man who never brings you to his home, never invites you to his home, you're only meeting at your house and or out, it's because either he doesn't have a space or there is another person in that space that he does not want you to be.
Right.
And he said, that's not true. That's not true. And so another lesson where a girlfriend called me, years after this conversation before, like it was a Monday Night Mingle topic, right? And says, I got it. And I said, you got what? And then, because I work in sexual health, I was like, ooh, how bad is it? What do you need? Let me get you treated, right? So we're cracking up laughing. She goes, I can't stand you. She said, what? She said she was dating a new guy who, they, had been to each other's houses, but every single time he wants to be back in his house, right? And she was like, I'm like trying to get my house, I'm ready to cook and do all of this. She's like, he wants to be at his house. And I said, what? You don't say. Because most men just like to be in their own space, right? Like whatever happens, they like to. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not, 100% for everyone, but most of the time, what I have learned, and I have learned a lot, is that they want to be in their space. And this is what I remind them. Think about the guys you've met. They can have a roommate, they can have a crappy studio apartment, or they can have a $10 million home, right? If they're steadily in your space, is there something because there's something at their space they don't want you to be at. Because think about the guys who invited you over and you're like, is this your house? Are you having a party? He's like, oh no, that's my roommate. And this is in college. You're 38 years old. Did you really just say a roommate? Yeah. I mean, the place was okay. It wasn't a nice place. Now, don't get me wrong. These downtown market rate rents here in Chicago, I see why you end up with a roommate or
Oh
two
yeah.
trying to live in a $5,000 a month apartment.
Right.
So, and you're only making 50,000, right? So,
Right.
um, like I said, again, this was just okay. Yet he wanted me in his space, right? Oh no, this room is mine. And I got the room with my own bathroom in it. Like you don't even have to come back out the room.
Unless you want to eat.
Hello, which meant, yeah, clearly you just, this was just for sex and we're not going to do anything but sex, right? Because now that we're back here, where do you want me to relax and come in and out of, right? Now, it might have been the room with the bathroom, but it still wasn't that big of a room.
Okay.
Wasn't a room with a seating area and and a bed and a bathroom or whatever. So it was just a lesson that, people, if they have somewhere to want you to, they will, but give yourself some grace because it takes time. And she said, I got it. And she says to me, I got it. I see what you mean. He only wants to be in his spot. And I do think back at relationships where she said, I had never seen it. And I said, oh, girl, yeah. I said, isn't that the hilarious part, though? When you do think back on some things and you go, that makes total sense now. Why he had bling around his license plate. That wasn't his car.
Oh
I
damn.
said, but, we don't always, I'm sorry, we don't always catch it right away, right? And the next thing is allow yourself to be vulnerable. You're
That's the
never
hard
gonna
part.
that you're never gonna get back into the relationships if you don't allow vulnerability, right? Because you're so busy trying to make sure that this guy doesn't do what that guy did when you were 38 and you're 55 now, right? That you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable and you miss the next thing. You miss the next best thing coming to you. And you're right. Tell me why you think it's hard.
Well, so I didn't have my heartbreaks until later on in life. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
I was in my 40s when I had my first one and in my 50s for my second one. And so at this point in life for me, and I understand my experience is a little different because everybody else is like, you're lucky. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think so. Because when you have those experiences earlier on in life, you learn how to deal with them better. So for me personally, being vulnerable at this point, that heartbreak thing is no joke. And I don't feel like going through that.
Yeah.
And especially, it's one thing when you're in your 20s and you get your heart broken, but you still want to have a family and be married. So, you kind of push yourself to get past that hurt because you have other goals that you want to, you want a family. Well, I've been married, I'm a widow. I've been married. I I have kids, they're grown. I have grandkids. Aside from companionship, there is nothing else motivating me to open myself up like that. And since my heartbreaks were not 30 years ago, I mean, my last one was, I think it's been 3 years now. Um, I just don't have a whole lot of motivation. For me, it's either going to flow naturally and just happen, but how people are looking for relationships, and I'm not looking and all of that. If it flows naturally and works, then it flows naturally and works. But I'm not pushing myself to, when I go out on a date, I'm not like, okay, make sure that you're open to everything, and you need to be vulnerable. And I'm a coach, so I understand my own
Yes.
issues.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
I understand. I'm completely aware of what it is. But for me, then on the other hand, if it flows naturally and I don't feel,
Yes.
to some
Yes.
degree, part of the lesson is learning to listen to your inner voice.
Yes.
And so when I get that feeling like, this just doesn't feel right. I was talking to a guy a couple weeks ago, and every time I talked to him, I just got this feeling, and something doesn't feel right. And the more I talked to him, and the more he revealed of himself, I just eventually said, hey, I don't think we have enough in common for this to really go anywhere. But there were so many things that he revealed over time. I understood where my little voice was coming from. And so I just learned to listen to that little voice, and that I don't have to make myself vulnerable to everybody.
Yes, yes. And even with that vulnerability, it means allow yourself to feel it. But if you don't allow yourself to feel it, you'll keep confusing it, right? You'll keep your guard up. You won't recognize the difference between the two. And then the other part is you also can just, we can be runners. We can be runners, right? We can let stuff go way too soon before we should, simply based on what we're thinking. But the biggest part of that is the most things that TV show snapped
Okay.
only comes from women who didn't do what you did. I saw that sign. I ignored that sign. I knew I listened to Xavier and Gina and still kept going. I never got to see his house. I didn't pay attention to the things he was doing and the things I was saying, and I just kept going with it. Because I just wanted to, I mean, people like forget closing their eyes. I know folks who close their eyes, their ears, bury their head in the sand where you can't breathe or speak because
Mhm.
they just don't want to acknowledge what
And
they
you know
have.
what? I think part of that is, and I've talked about this before, when it came to marriage, but now I think even more so in relationships. I think some people just want to be in a relationship, so they make excuses and turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to a lot of
Oh,
the things that come up because they really just want to be in a relationship.
oh,
And the
you are
thing
so
about it
right.
is, when you are comfortable in your own skin and with yourself, and you've created a life that you enjoy with or without someone else, you can exist by yourself. You're not quite as needy for that relationship. You don't need to turn a blind eye. If I see that this is probably going to be a problem, I see that's just going to be a problem. I'm not going to say, oh, I could compromise with the fact that he smokes cigarettes, knowing that I hate cigarette smoke. I hate it with
Yes,
passion. I don't
yes,
want to be around somebody that smokes cigarettes, period.
yep,
So I'm not going to
yep,
say, oh, but he's a nice guy. I really want a relationship. And then every time he goes to kiss me, I'm smelling this nicotine and stuff, and it's grossing me out. Or his clothes smell, but people make
yep.
a lot of excuses for stuff because they want that relationship. It's not that they want that person, because they're making excuses as to why that person qualifies. You want that relationship, and you don't know if there's going to be another person coming around. So,
And that's the part that, as the kids say, that part,
yep,
that part.
yep.
That's exactly when people try to tell me, at least I got somebody. And I'm horribly crass with certain things. You got to catch me on the wrong day, because then that's when I say, do you? Right. Because otherwise I say, you do. And that brings me to my last point, and we can always go back and forth with them. Um, but definitely thinking that this last point is, don't lie to you. That's what girlfriends are for. Lie to us. Lie to your friend, lie to you, lie to the public, lie to anybody else. Don't lie to yourself, because you know that I don't care what your relationship looks like, and we're just having this conversation, me and my new guy, because I'm absolutely crazy in love these days. But
Oh, get down.
me and my new guy were just talking um about how couples look in public and then go home. He's like, and I knew they weren't even speaking to each other. I was like, oh yeah, I know of couples who like display very well. They're not even on the same level of the same house,
I
right?
grew up in
He
that
was in the basement.
situation.
He was, what'd you say?
I grew up in that, my mom and dad and me in public, we were the perfect little
Yep,
family with
yep,
the cute little daughter. I mean, it was just, and then when we got home, My dad would get dressed and go somewhere else, and my mom would sit in front of TV pissed off because of the whole situation. And I was usually, because I'm an only child, I was
Right.
often on punishment because my mom was mad at my dad, and
Yep.
I looked like my dad.
Yep.
So out in public, it would be like, oh, this everything. We looked great, and everybody said everything right. Of course, except for me, because I was a tomboy and my mom wanted a girly girl. So I just really didn't get it right ever. I got all of my little frilly socks dirty because I was playing in the dirt with the boys and stuff.
Absolutely.
I wasn't supposed to be playing with the boys anyway. I was supposed to be sitting down, still, nice and quiet. And that's never been me. So, yeah,
Right.
I grew up around that. And, that whole phony thing, that's why you will hear me say often, I can't stand phony people because you never know what the hell is really going on with phony people.
Oh, isn't
Liars
that
and phony people, which are pretty much the same, you don't really know what really is going on. You only know because people use words to lie. You only know what they
oh,
tell you.
shut up. Now, what's funny is I can't believe you said that because I'll never forget when I was working at the university. Um, um, one of the she was a receptionist at the time, right? Turns out she was the receptionist who was the daughter-in-law of the executive director, the soon-to-be daughter-in-law of the executive director who's headed to law school. So clearly she's just being paid very well to do very little.
Mhm.
But no, what she said to me about that exactly is, you know what, I just really like you, Gina. And you know what I really like what you say, you mean. Like whatever you, if it comes out your mouth, you really mean it. And I said, thank you. I think, like, working
That's
in certain
definitely a compliment.
environments, when you're the only Black girl there, you're going, I got to think that through. Is that a hit or is it not a hit? Right? I'm trying to see where we're going with this, right? But she says, no, I really mean it because like I can see what you're saying. And I mean, when you say something, I mean it. And I said, well, what did I say? And she said, I mean it all the way down to good morning. I said, damn. Now you talk about not paying attention. That was the best lesson from her, who didn't even stay much longer. You know what I mean? And that was interesting because when she said that, it just I should have paid attention to that, right? Because the number of people who, I'm smart enough that you're not going to totally backstab me, but the number of underhand moves that came from that place a couple different times over the years was like, this is what Aaron meant. Right? Like when you say good morning, do you really even mean it? I said, Dad, when you said all the way down to good morning, because people can be so phony.
Yes, they can.
They can be so phony. And what I love is that someone called me phony. And I absolutely loved it when she said it. I was having a conversation like this, girl, about that man last night. Woo, woo, woo. We had a great time. And I'm talking and slang, and a patient walked up, right? And I immediately turned on my customer service voice.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't get your customer service voice. Unfortunately, some Black people feel like it's a white voice, but it's a customer service voice. It is a why we're here. It is our work fucking voice. Excuse
Absolutely.
me. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Good morning. How are you? Welcome. And I started talking. She's like, girl, you so phony. The way you turned around to that person. And I said, it wasn't phony. I absolutely meant good morning. I absolutely meant to ask her how she was doing. I absolutely meant to get to the root of her problem and get her what she needed. But you just flipped it. I said, I flipped it because she was never supposed to walk up and hear me talking about my man.
Exactly. So you went from personal to professional.
You got it.
Too many people don't know the difference.
Absolutely. And even when you say professional, I always have to remind people that, is it really my profession? No, it's just my customer service. And more importantly, it is the manners that I was taught as a child from my parents, right? And you know where it came from? Hey, mom, let's try that sentence again. I'm not your peer, I'm your parent.
That's right.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yep, I've heard that too. There's a way you talk to everybody.
I am not your peer. You can't. I'm in the middle of telling the story about what happened. And if I smack my teeth and she said, whoa, whoa, whoa. cut all that out. Go ahead, tell me exactly what happened, right? And because most importantly, my mother was trying to get to the bottom of, are you in this story at all? Are you trying to go around all of this to tell me what your role is before I get a call from the school? Right?
Right,
What's your role in this? Right? And then hilariously, if I had no role in it, she was like, well, what did you tell me all of that for? Right? Because I'm like, that was exciting, or that was, ridiculous what happened and stuff, right? And she would be like, girl, I thought you were going somewhere with that story. Like,
that's so funny.
that was major. But anyway, so yeah, I like to do not lie to yourself, because that's, I tell my friends, I'm here for that. You know what you're going home to. You know what you're doing. And don't get me wrong, I really would like to go back to your parents and give your parents some grace. I understood exactly every single thing you said. It didn't happen in my childhood, but that's because I was raised by my stepdad, and it was both of their second marriages, right?
Okay.
So my natural father died when I was 2.
Okay.
And about 7 years, my mother was a single parent. Then, she remarried. She married my stepdad, who, yesterday was his death anniversary. He died 22 years ago yesterday.
Oh.
And the best man to walk the face of the earth, right?
Okay.
Now, my sisters and brothers are much older, so they got what you got.
Okay.
Right. So it wasn't necessarily they got the whole, oh yeah, it was great as long as daddy was acting right. You know what I mean?
Right.
The way the family tells the story, I was born on Easter Sunday, but I was born because daddy had stayed out all night the night before, and mommy was mad and said, oh, I'll make it. So he's got to get up and come to the hospital. Right. He's got to get up and come get me. Turns out I actually came that day, and they had to send my sister back home in a cab because she thought she was doing something by, you know, making him go to come get her. So when I think about it, the way you told the story is, oh, we presented this great family, then he'd get up and leave, and she's mad. And so my sisters and brothers had to deal with that mood swing based on daddy. So when my mother remarried my stepfather, and I promise you, everybody loves their daddy. My dad, not my daddy, but my dad was the best thing to walk the face of the earth to me, because he was our stepfather, and you never would have known it, right? Loved us like we were his own, and because he never had kids. But one of the things is that with the lying to yourself, and all of the things that you go through, you think about it. My mother used to say, I was like, Dad is perfect. And she's like, okay, first of all, he's not perfect. It's shit you don't know. And more importantly, she said, well, of course he's great now. And they were both widows. So she was like, too bad we can't ask Anna, his first wife,
Mm.
Then it takes me to something my dad used to say. Man has to throw his hat in the house first. And I said, why do you throw your hat in the house? And I was a kid, so it was a funny story. He said, you throw your hat in the house to make sure it doesn't get hit with a frying pan or get shot with a gun, right? And I'm, see, you're laughing, right? So as a kid, I'm cracking up laughing, like, oh, that's so funny. As an adult, it hit me and go, nigga, you ain't tell me you was coming in at 2:15 in the morning.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why would she hit you in the head with a frying pan, right?
Right.
Because you were coming home the next day. You got paid on Friday. You were coming home Saturday afternoon at 2:15.
Right.
And so those are lessons that you get as you're going along with it and stuff. And my mother says, "Oh, of course he is now. Shit, he old and tired." So dad is perfect now and doesn't do this or that. So I say to us as people, not just women, but as people, don't lie to yourself. If you know how it makes you feel, you know how things make you feel. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, so kudos to you for listening to that just recently, right? Like, this isn't panning out,
And you know what? When you talk about lying to yourself, I think that to some degree, we are socially conditioned to lie to ourselves, and particularly when it comes to marriage, because marriage is supposed to be forever. And when we look back on some of our parents and grandparents' marriages and we think about all of the outside, a lot of those men had a couple families.
Yes. Yes.
But those women, and a lot of those women knew about those other, they knew about each other. They just didn't live in the same house. It was polygamy, just not consensual polygamy. But I think,
Or was it? Or was it?
well, by default, maybe.
See,
But what I'm
we
saying is
didn't know as the kids, but women knew. They knew.
we lied to ourselves to make that marriage thing, well, they did, look
Yeah,
good, and do it until death do you part, because divorce was frowned upon. I think we're conditioned to lie to ourselves.
I agree. But I wanted to go back to what you said about being in polygamous relationships and not knowing, but did they? Because see, nowadays women are, and it's just, I don't know which is worse. Women lying to themselves then or lying to themselves now, but trying to be on Facebook or social media saying, oh yeah, I'm the other woman and I got a insurance policy on him and he loves me and he takes care of my kids. I mean, I don't know which is worse, but I do know there's something to be said about how it was done in the past. And that you didn't know about all your siblings and cousins until his funeral when everybody got to come.
Right.
Right. But how once you're an adult, you do recognize, not my dad, but like, oh, he was never here on Thanksgiving. I mean, Christmas Eve, because he was spending it with his other family, right? He was here Christmas Day for us. That he always woke up Christmas Day, but he was never here Christmas Eve. And like year after year after year, it would be like, oh, dad's out because mom's home cooking. Well, no, dad was out because dad was with his other family.
That's
and
so
later
crazy.
On, it is. And so like I said, I don't know which is worse, because some women, it kills them, especially when they're, and usually it happens, like at funerals and things like that. But let me just say, we as women who, not just, I don't want to say women, because I know in relationships, so many men do. So many men. And that's the whole thing, what I was talking about with Snapped. We lose it once you make us, you publicly humiliate us, or you take us to the point where we say, I know you were seeing Xavier every Tuesday. I'm doing Monday Night Mingle, she's doing Tuesday Night Tingles. I get that. I get that part. But how dare you not show up for the birth of our child? Ooh. How dare you not come when I tell you I broke my leg? Right? Like there are things that just take that, even though we knew about it, because now you just made it straight disrespectful, and rude, so the lying to yourself makes women snap, because we know, like, or people snap, right? I knew what it was. I've been going through this all along. You think I'm stupid? You think I didn't know? The movie Fences, remember Fences, and how she, took the kid on, and because, the mother had died, and she with Denzel Washington and, oh my God, I'm looking, Viola Davis, thank you. I don't know where Olivia Johnson came from, but Viola Davis, right? About, a wife knowing that he philandered and knowing that he had these affairs. And then when the other woman, got sick and died, you take on the other baby because it's your husband's child. So,
man,
yeah, those are the things. But, just those are the lessons learned. But just let's have some real conversation about how moving forward you can do. Let's genuinely like each other. You have to be honest, and you have to like the person that you like, right? I know sometimes, and I still stand by this. I still stand by this when it comes to marriage. It has nothing to do with just love and like. Marriage is a business contract. That's why it takes a lawyer to get in and a lawyer to get out. And you should be a good business person. If it's not going to benefit you, pay attention to that, right? But otherwise, you should genuinely like the person, right? And enjoy your sense of humor, because you should be able to make each other laugh, because otherwise they might be great for you and making sure you budget well and keep a clean house and have money and this and that. But if you're never smiling, good Lord,
you don't enjoy each other. That is so important. And one of my beliefs is, I know people talk about, marriage being a business, and it is, because you should accumulate wealth together. You should grow. generally people do get married younger in life. So you should be growing and accumulating things together. However, I truly believe that the foundation for even wanting to do any of that with another person should be because you genuinely love that person. You love being around them. You love experiencing life with them. Because for me, I believe it is the good times that make you want to get through the bad times. Everybody's going to have bad times. But if your good times are good enough, you're going to look at each other and be like, okay, we got to figure this out because I don't want to do this with nobody else. I love
Yes.
you. And
Yes.
so I definitely believe that love is the foundation. So my oldest daughter is married.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I love about her and her husband, for one, I know her husband loves her. That's one of the things. But they have their own relationship, and they enjoy being around each other. Like when they're doing nothing, they have their own little inside jokes and jokes about each other. And you can just see that, them being together. I can't even imagine that my son-in-law would ever want to do any of the stuff that he's done with my daughter with another woman because they
Mm.
just have that connection. And
Yep.
the same with my daughter. They just
Right.
have that connection. And I think that is that foundation that makes a marriage work.
And that is the best part when you have that connection, right? And I think it's one of the things that when couples do have bad times, exactly like you said, even if either one of them cheated and something happened, right? I want them to always think about, this is my best friend. This is the person that I want to continuously do this crazy thing with. Have our best friends hurt us? Absolutely. Have our parents hurt us? Absolutely. And so the thing to any relationship is to get past that and get back to it. But exactly like you said, if the foundation isn't built on love and true connection and understanding, you won't get to that. You
Right.
won't get
Because
to that.
if I don't genuinely love you,
And
then when
like you.
things get rough, I'm going to think, okay, so we've built this, that, and the other. I don't like him no more. I don't like her no more. So if I cut out, I can get half of this. I think I'm just going to take that and go and find happiness because that's what everybody wants us to
Searching
be
for.
happy.
Yep.
And if you're not happy with that person, well, first of all, you got to be happy with yourself, but you also
Yes.
have to be real with yourself. And so if that other person is no longer adding happiness, which to me is one of the fallacies of marriage, is that it's going to last forever. Not much lasts forever. Your cars we don't even last forever. I mean, it's
Thank
forever
you.
for us,
Thank you.
but emotions change. And the thought that we are looking at 20-year-olds to choose a mate for the next 65 years of
Yes.
their life,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
like so unrealistic to me because you become a different person all the time. I am not the same person
Absolutely.
I was at 25. I often, and I've said this on air before, I often wonder if my husband hadn't died, I often wonder if we would have still been together or not.
Of course.
You know, because we've
And guess
all
what?
changed. And sometimes you grow apart.
And you got to say till death do you part because you're a widow, right? But for the
Yes.
most part, as long as you're not lying to yourself and you say, I wonder if I had been able to keep going with that, right? Or I wonder if he would have survived this evolution of me, right? Because we're
Right.
always constantly evolving. And there are some, but bigger than what you just said about as we evolve and change, though, your 20-year-old self trying to choose a partner for the next 65 years, the reality is that the responsibleness of some couples, once you've created this business, aka also known as marriage, and then have had children, that they find ways to stick it out. We'll talk about parenting another time, but one of the biggest things that pisses me off as a woman, and I have no children, is you're over here in my face trying to run Terry's house over there with your kids. Yeah, well, she can't hold up. You're trying to run that household and this household. Because if you didn't want Terry to ever date again, you should have stayed there. If you stayed there, that way you're sure she would never date again. You're pretty sure that you can, run that household from here. So you can't tell people what to do from there, right? But
Right.
if you had stayed in that, and the other part of that is that we constantly evolve. But the other, we also have to be responsible for our actions. And if we have created this mess, running off and leaving it and going to the next relationship is not going to fix it. Because as Teddy Pendergrass said, you can't hide from yourself.
That's
Everywhere you
right.
go, there you are.
That's right.
You're going to continuously find you at the end of everything. So that's the bigger lesson in that. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see this at first. So yeah, if it by all means, I see that we have people now joining us. And
Yeah.
please feel free to comment or question on as we're talking about lessons learned from relationships. And that was the title because we were having real ass wisdom conversation for my Gina Lamar Raw this morning. But the real ass wisdom was the lessons learned. And then the way it said it to me this morning, or how long it took you to learn that lesson, I said, "Dang, you just totally changed it." Because you're right. How long did it take me to learn to pay
So let me
attention?
ask you, what was the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself through your relationships?
My absolutes. The two things that I am not willing to stop, or not the two things, because I say there are two things, but there are other things, right? But I had to learn what my deal breakers were. And once you learn your deal breakers, you can move, you just move differently, right? You just said about smoking, about the smoking thing. And that is for me. Smoking took my mother. And
Mm,
it just, I don't like the way it smells. I don't like the way it tastes. I don't care what you do or say. But my very first boyfriend smoked. But
I
I
had
was in
one.
love with Brock. I wanted to be with him forever. I shouldn't even be able to talk about another person right now because according to my high school yearbook, we're supposed to have 2.5 children and be together forever. And I'm not even sure what the 0.5 was. If it was a midget, if I was just going to stay pregnant forever, but I just love how I wrote 2.5 children. I think I'm pretty sure I just learned about the nuclear family or something, and that was an average or something.
Yep, that's what
But
that was the average. That's what they said.
absolutely.
I think that's
But
2 kids and a dog.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Right. Maybe the dog. I never even thought about the dog or something. But I was like, do I just stay pregnant? What the heck? Or is it a midget? But yeah, I had all of these things that I just thought made sense. My first husband, love him to death. My ex-husband, great guy, met my list, tall, dark, handsome, this, that. He wasn't Catholic. Oh, he said, fine, I'll convert. He'll do that. I mean, I had this whole list of stuff that he had to be. And he was great. He did all of those. He met up to all of those things. Then I get married and I go, dude, you can't change a light bulb.
Uh,
And this is not dogging him, but it's totally dogging. Like, you're 6'7", you're the tallest thing in the house. Like, if you don't, and I'm on a ladder changing a light bulb, and not anything other than those are the real lessons you end up learning that I need you to be able to do versus the fairy tale stuff. Like like you said, I make this list as a 12-year-old kid watching fairy tales, Anita Baker song, fairy tales, right? You listen, you come up with all of these things based on some stuff that you've watched on television, read in books, and then have to grow up and understand those things. And I wish him the absolute best, and I do ask that everybody here keep him in prayer. He's battling Parkinson's now.
oh,
But but the best thing to have ever happened was that we divorced and he remarried, and he and his wife adopted 3 brothers, 3 boys.
oh wow.
And I know if I had ever had a kid that he probably wouldn't have adopted. So I just talk about, lessons learned and real ass wisdom, every once in a while, and only because you have your daughters, and I love, having a mini me. So I say that to my girlfriends now all the time. I just want a mini me now. I didn't want to be pregnant and have kids and raise them, do all that responsible crap. I just like the fact that you all, as we have children, like, oh yeah, that's mini me, right? Like, I want a young Gina, but none of that's happened.
You
So
want a
that's
young Gina. You know, kids are definitely something else, but as they become adults and
yes,
you know, get their own lives together, it's interesting to watch because you do see yourself. You see the mistakes they make, you see the personalities and attitudes they have, you see their successes, and it's like, okay, okay. But I always told my girls that they should be the new and improved version of me. So that's what I always wanted for them, because I thought I was pretty on it, but I wanted them to be even more on it. And so
Absolutely.
that's the joy for me of watching the kids grow and stuff.
And you're absolutely right. And I am saddened when I find that there are women who don't want that, or parents, period,
I
who
know.
don't want that for their
Well, how does
children.
that happen?
I promise you, I never understood that and thought there's no way, because all your parents do say is do better than me, right? All they say is, yeah, I had to walk 20 miles to school, so I'm going to make sure you only walk 5, right? And then to have witnessed, and I've witnessed it. I've witnessed, women who are jealous of their children,
I was
and
talking to a
or
young lady a
parents,
few
not
weeks
just
ago,
women.
and she said that she felt like her mom was jealous of her. And I'm like, how does that happen? Because we are the biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah, normally, right?
Normally, how
My,
do
my,
you
my,
become jealous of your kid doing well? I don't
my I was,
I
yeah. My mother and
can't
my sisters, I would say,
even understand
are my biggest cheerleaders, and I have no problem saying it, not just because she's on the listening in today, but I do say when she's, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," and I mean this when I say it, that I am who I am because of how you all cheer me on, right?
that.
And you let me make these mistakes, and these lessons learned that we've talked about today all come from the molding and shaping of my mother and my sisters. Now, let me tell you who I am, that I'm a really smart learner about some stuff. Not so much about other stuff, but some stuff I am. I don't need to go through what you went through.
Right,
I watched it happen. And
right.
I'm thinking, and since James is on this call or listening in, he's going to catch this one too. If I watch James play you with 2 girls, play Terry with 2 boys, what would I give him? A hermaphrodite? Why would I have kids with him? And he didn't stay with you. He didn't stay with Terry. He didn't stay with his
Yep.
daughters. He didn't stay with his sons. Why would I make babies with him when I recognize, oh, he doesn't want to be with children. He just wants to
Right,
be with make children. So, and not just that that's the truth, because there's so many other layers to that. But I don't need that lesson. I don't need to have that happen to me. One of the things I do say, I mean, something as simple as, driving or drinking and driving or something, right? Um, that I don't need to do that to recognize I can have an accident. I've watched other people do it. And
right.
once they've done it, I don't need to learn that. So there are lots of things that I have learned through my friends. I
That was
have
like
learned.
that was actually another thing my dad used to tell me in his little one-liners. He used to say, you learn from your mistakes, but if you're really smart, you learn from other people's mistakes.
Bam,
Hmm.
bam. And it's not even a mistake as much as it is their life lesson. Because
Right.
even if I do see them get married and they're having a successful marriage, I also recognize, ooh, they did that, but they also struggled with this, or I watched with that, or I saw some things there. So, these lessons, they're, first of all, they're going to continue. And I like to think that the older you get, the easier the lesson comes, and that you've learned enough that you can master this thing called relationships. But it's a constant. You're
Yes, it
constantly
is.
learning. It's constant compromise. You really and truly have to be able to compromise and work through it, and not just compromise to the point that you're giving everything and your partner is not, or your partner is giving of everything and you're not. You have to find the balance that works for you all. I think what you said best is watching your daughter and her husband, right? Like they have this real friendship and this real relationship that balances them.
Hmm.
And sometimes you just have some people, you've seen some marriages that, and again, we don't know because we've talked about people, your parents in public versus in private.
Mhm.
and how, but I do think there's some people you see it. They just work well together. They're a great team. They're each other's friend. And that makes a difference, right?
And I think
Versus,
part of the problem comes in is that everyone hasn't come to that understanding that that's the foundation. You get some people who they have a real personal connection with someone, but they allow um, the material things. The house is not big enough, the car is not good enough, the salary is not high enough, and you
yes.
leave that person that you have, because all of those things can change. The
And
things that you can change, you change. But finding someone who you have that genuine connection with, that doesn't always come around that easily.
yes.
You can find
Yeah.
somebody that's attracted to you that might want to have sex with you, but a real genuine
All
connection
day.
is
I
a
get
whole
that all day.
all
Yeah,
day. You can find
right,
that.
right, 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 right.
And like
Yeah.
7 times on the weekend.
Right, right, right. You don't even get I don't even get that. I'm talking all that good smack and you're going, really? But no, it makes total sense that you know what you have. And I think when we talk about these lessons is that you have to be realistic about what works for you. Because I'm looking at someone else's relationship and I go, well, that works great for them. Like, even if it is lying, when they're in public, they're a united front. At home, they don't even speak to each other, but
That's crazy.
no, but it works for them.
Works
Is it
how?
really?
Works for what? What
Is
is
it really? You got it. Because you're lying to yourself. And then you die a little bit every single day. If no one is saying something, I am going to say something that I heard. But I told you what Terry has taught me and stuff over the years. But I do know one of the things that James said before was that, you don't want to be in a relationship that you pull up to the house and say, damn, let me get my mind right before I go in.
right?
You know what? Right? Like, let me sit here and stay. Or you have people who just stay out. And I'm like, don't you have a family? Like,
I
you live
had
up in here more than you do there because you just don't want to go home.
I
You
had
know, that
I had this conversation actually on a post last week. I posted something about being happily married. Not me, but about that was the topic. And a guy came on the thread and said, where in the vows does it say you have to be happy?
damn.
And I said, well, who wants to die miserable or live miserable?
What joins that? Like,
Right. And he said that
now you
he
got me
said
thinking I have to rewrite vows, right? Like, make sure your vows
exactly.
say happiness,
He
right?
said that marriage is for raising kids and acquiring wealth. I said within the context of happiness, yes, because if you are not adding to my happiness, and there's that foundation again, because first you have to be happy with yourself. Because
Yes,
when you're happy and complete within yourself, you're not going to allow people to mistreat you because
yes.
you value yourself. And when you don't value yourself, when your self-esteem is messed up, that's when you seek other people for validation and to make you feel like you're okay because somebody else likes you, so you must be okay. But
And people think that, and what happens in relationships when you go just a little bit too far, and I've had to say that to somebody before, oh, I see what happened. You thought I loved you more than I love Gina Lamar. You must be out your mind. Because I
exactly,
wish I am not going to allow that, because that would mean that I do love you and value you more than I value me. And that's not going to happen. I'm sure my actions have made you think that. I'm sure that I've said and done some things that make you think that. And maybe you think you're looking at what feels like desperation, but you must be out of your mind when it comes down to it. And that's when you have to be real with yourself and go back to not lying to you. Pay attention to their actions, right? Not what they say. Pay attention to what they do. And
that's
if
right.
their actions don't meet their words, you have to pay attention to that, right? And you have to do what you say you're going to do. The constant compromise is one thing, but to fall into my two things are drugs and violence, period, right? And so when someone said to me about smoking again recently, and I said, oh, that's an absolute, that's a deal breaker. You didn't say that was a deal breaker. I said, well, shit, that was a given, because I would never be dating a smoker. right? Like the only reason I'm talking to you is because you're not a smoker. And I have met men who are very nice, and it's no, no slight against them. And I love it when a man says, I'll stop. And I said, if you ain't stopped for you all this time, I'm definitely not going to have you trying to stop for me.
Right.
Barack didn't stop. I know my mother died with a smoking addiction, right? So I know about smoking. And so I just know Barack, as the president, they were trying to get him to stop. Oh, it doesn't look good for Americans. So he's sneaking a cigarette, because that's just how strong cigarette addiction can be. So I know that. And then I really want to make sure that I, along with me always saying, because my friends, I'll tell you in a heartbeat, and if you hear me say this in a conversation amongst us, then that means, I think you're lying, because I say, well, hey, I'm here. That's what girlfriends are for. Don't lie to you, though. Because if you think that he spent New Year's Eve at work and I'm kidding, and didn't call you at midnight talking about he was really working, don't lie to you. He was clearly with this other woman. No, I am totally being facetious about that one. But I do say, don't lie to you, right? And bigger than all of that is to give yourself grace. Give yourself some real grace about all of this, or else you'll never be able to get into another relationship. You'll always be thinking about what, for me, is Brock Blanton, my very first love, right? And the first time I ever saw him, like kissing, or not kissing, he walked the girl to the house. To this day, I swear he kissed her, right? But I could see out my window because I had a curfew, but I have a corner house, and I saw him walk that girl down to her house. Ooh. And in my mind, they kissed like in Gone with the Wind, like Scarlett O'Hara. None of that may have happened, but that's what I do, right? So, if you don't give yourself some grace and be kind to yourself about some of the mistakes and choices you've made. Did someone come off? Terry, did you mean to come off of mute?
Gina, how old was Brock?
Terry, ma'am, I think you're getting personal now. Yes, he was 16. He was 16, now he's 15, but
I was going to say, I think he was probably 13 or 14 years old. Give him a break.
Right. But in my world, if I don't give myself and give him a break and give myself some grace on that, I will, every single time I see or think you're talking to someone else and I can't see you, I'll be like, they're in there kissing like, Gone with the Wind, or what's my other movie I love, like you rolling on the beach,
Rock is still in trouble 40 years later.
Oh my God, absolutely for that, right? But no, give yourself some grace. So I'm going to wrap with making sure that we, in any relationship, all the decisions, the good decisions we've made, the bad decisions we've made, is to make sure that, you give yourself some grace with it. But my tip is, don't let them start. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to say it. That really and truly, I'll save that one for another one. But some of the real wisdom, because it's Gina Lamar Raw, some of the real ass wisdom today is to pay attention to their actions, to do what you say you're going to do, including leaving an abusive relationship. If you say, I'm never going to take an ass whooping, don't take the ass whooping. Give yourself some grace and don't lie to you.
All right. Great show, Gina. Great show, as usual. And so when is your next show?
My next show is going to be on February 17th.
Okay.
It is Monday, February 17th. And I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Monday, February 21st.
Okay.
Today is the 17th. Is Monday, February 21st. And did you see I got to do my promo from Dallas? I was so late to Jeff.
I did. I saw the video. I hate that you missed them. That would have been great. I would have loved to have put that in the group with you and him.
And let me tell you why. I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I didn't get up. We were down there partying, and it got cold. It was so nice on Friday. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, on Friday it was 70 degrees at night. Saturday we woke up. It snowed in Dallas.
Oh my.
And we ended up getting tacos delivered to us at the hotel, and I never made it out the house. I mean, out of the hotel till it was time later on. So yes, I do owe another visit to Jeff so I can, broadcast from there, because I love him giving us this really great platform. platform. And thank you as
Absolutely.
well, Xavier. This is what you do.
Yes, and I love doing it. And thank you. And we will look forward to your next show on Monday, February
February 21st.
21st. All
Yeah.
right. And so today is January, what is today?
17th.
January 17th. And if you are listening to a replay of this show, be sure and catch the live shows on Mondays from 7 to 9 a.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 12 to 2. Coming up next, we have Mr. Adam Jackson, Chicago's own, and we're going to talk business and the success of his cigar line. And we'll be right back.